gentlemen, please give it up for Isaac Butterfield!
Action. What are you doing, you little doom?
I don't think I could fault the way I grew up. I had amazing parents. Mum and dad were both very strong people in their own right. I had 4 younger brothers. I was a happy kid. Like, the name Isaac literally means the funny one or the laughing one. And that was very much me to a T. My parents sort of gave me the ability to do not whatever I wanted to do, but to be myself. My dad was always quite, he tried to cultivate in the best way your natural expression of the type of person who you wanted to be.
I do remember distinctly, it was a long, difficult birth. It took all day, all night. And in the end we got him out how best we could. And as I drove away, I had to be in New Zealand playing rugby league. Cats in the Cradle came on. It was just a little reminder that while there was planes to catch and bills to pay, I needed to be close to the kids. And I think I've sort of kept my side of that bargain.
I think it was really important to me in my life growing up that my mum was a very strong person. Dad was a professional footballer, so he was away with work on a weekly basis, and Mum was just such a strong, incredible influence on me.
Butterfield with him. Tony Butterfield charging towards the line.
My dad played for the Newcastle Knights, and he was one of the original players for that team and played for a number of years.
Rugby league was serious for me at that time, and Isaac was close to that.
I used to love watching like highlight tapes of him. I went to my first game when I was 2 weeks old as a baby.
He was on the bus for the grand final trip home from Sydney.
When the Knights won the 1997 grand final, I was there. I was on the team bus on the way home.
Came back into Newcastle and there's people everywhere, and he was part of that, which I think preordained him to be sort of a bit of a rugby league guy over the years, and he went on to play, 15, 16 years straight.
When I was a young kid, I used to stay at my grandparents' house at least once a week.
He used to come every weekend from school before he turned 18, and then he lived here for over a year.
They were probably the biggest influence on my life as far as humour goes. Like, Pop's a massive smart ass in the most hilarious way. And Gran is like just a beautiful human being and has done so much for me, but she also is just hilarious.
We had a special bond, and it was, we used to go places and we had a good time.
That's where I got my humour from, I think, was from my grandparents, because they were the ones who were always joking and putting shit on each other. And I would go on these just journeys watching like through Pop's old VHSs. He had a Billy Connolly VHS, and that was probably the first bit of stand-up that I ever saw. And, Billy Connolly walking around the stage and flicking his hair back, and he's, fucking this, and it's a terrible impression, but that sort of gave me the idea of, okay, this guy is telling stories to this big group of people, and he's able to do that, make them all laugh, everyone loves him, and he's entertained, and that's his job. That was my first impression of stand-up comedy, and I thought, this could really be something that I could do. Growing up, all I wanted to do was play footy for the Knights. That's all I wanted to do. It was interesting because I was always compared to my dad. Like, I was an okay footballer. I did my best, but I was never overly aggressive. I was only aggressive a couple of times in my entire career. It just wasn't sort of my game. And because I was being compared to my old man, it was difficult to sort of, go, okay, I'm good, but I was never good enough.
Isaac played football from when he was 5 or 6, and we always used to go to every game.
He liked to play fullback. He wasn't necessarily the world's toughest guy, but then all of a sudden The guy started growing, and it kept growing and growing. And in rugby league, the bigger you get, the further you get to the front of the queue. And so he ended up in the front row and became an excellent player.
So this is Dudley Oval. This is where I spent basically my entire childhood playing footy and having a great time. It was a big part of my life. It was in my blood, and a lot of people expected me to be very good at the sport. For a long time, I really didn't enjoy playing, to be honest. I don't really think I've ever really told many people that, but I never really got overly into it. I wasn't an aggressive person. I barely ran the ball. I just wasn't into it for whatever reason. As I got older, I started to enjoy it. This try line just down here, they called it the Butterfield line, because all I did was cross that try line, just under the posts every time. I probably kicked all the goals as well. I want to remain humble in this, but definitely I was the greatest player that ever lived. Deciding probably about, I was 15 or so, and I was like, okay, I'm never going to be a footballer. I started looking at what other things I could do. And years previously, I had done things at primary school, things like hosting the talent quests, and I'd get up there and I'd tell jokes. Or at high school, I would get up in front of the assembly and I would read things out, but I'd make people laugh at the same time.
When he was here, we used to watch a lot of comedy. He's always had a bit of a wit. I can remember when he was 5, he'd come home from school and he said, I learnt new words today. And we said, oh, what were they? He said, oh, penis and vagina. And he said, that rhymes with China.
And it probably wasn't until the age of, let's say, 15 or so that I realised that, okay, this is something, and it has a name. This is what a stand-up comedian does. Maybe I could do that. And then I thought to myself, okay, I now have a sort of goal in mind. I'm going to be a comedian. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
There was one event up at Dudley when Isaac was sort of kicking off, very unsure of himself, but there was an excellent comedian up at a fundraiser the footy team put on up at the bowling club, and I thought I'd set Isaac up. He was still very cagey and lacking confidence, and so I mentioned to the comedian to just drag him up.
It was basically my old man's idea. He went up to Andy and said, mate, Isaac wants to give stand-up a go. Will you get him up on stage? And I was shitting myself when he brought it up. He said, oh, I've got a local guy here who wants to give stand-up a go for the first time. And I knew he was talking about me immediately, and I was just terrified.
As he went, and as they sort of parried back and forth in the sort of joke war, a battle, Isaac started landing some blows, and the boys got behind him.
I got up there and told one joke, and it's in the special. That kicked everything off. It's just such a shame that this place is now like this.
I think that may have been the moment that he thought, hang on, maybe I can do this.
Certainly a place that is very near and dear to me, because this is basically where it all started, in this derelict, dilapidated building. Without this night here, none of this would exist. This video wouldn't exist. Special wouldn't exist. My YouTube career wouldn't exist. I don't know where I'd be. I really enjoyed myself in the later years of school. I just had a good time, as a lot of people do in year 11 and 12, and started to go out and get on the piss, and then career didn't really matter, and I didn't end up going to uni. I did go actually to uni for a couple of weeks, and then I left because it was too hard to get car parks in the morning. I was just like, this is just too much.
Didn't surprise me. He had a lot of trouble concentrating and he hated school anyway.
And it was at this stage where I was just one night, right? I was laying in bed in my grandparents' house. I basically lost control of my head. Just randomly. I started to feel really weird, really light, really dizzy in the head, and I lost control of it. And what I mean by that is my head started to turn like this. And it got stuck like this for about 10 seconds. All in the meantime, my left eye goes blind, dark, nothing. I'm completely conscious through this, and it is probably to this day the most terrifying moment in my life. I didn't know what was going on, but as a lot of men do, I just palmed it off as nothing and didn't really worry about it. And it continued to happen for probably the next 2 years until I was 21. I went to the doctor and he said to me, mate, you could have this disease. And it was a disease which a lot of people have, and they get put into wheelchairs and they get stuck in one position for the rest of their lives. And obviously that terrified me. I didn't know what to do. I'm 21 years old at this stage. And I went home to my family and I didn't tell really anyone. And I don't think I've ever been more alone than in that moment, because I was just shit scared. So eventually the diagnosis was given to me of frontal lobe epilepsy. It's a very general term because epilepsy is on the same spectrum of migraines. It's all this whole big weird thing anyway. So that's apparently what I've got, some sort of form of that. What I did to treat it at the start was I ate a ketogenic diet because it helped treat people with epilepsy. I thought, okay, well this is what I've got, so let's see if it helps. And it did. It stopped my condition happening without any medication for almost a year. Also, as a side effect of eating that diet, I lost 34 kilos. I went from 130 kilos to 96. And what happened was I was running water for my local footy team, and I had one of the attacks again, the epileptic fits again, and I hadn't had one in about a year.
He gave somebody a drink and then he just fell over. And he tells me as I run on that he just had a little bit of a fade out.
And it was very, very, very fucking embarrassing because it happened on the field. I was running water. That really affected me. And I didn't understand why for a long time, probably about 2 years. I didn't understand why that affected me.
I'm sure there was a lot of thoughts running through his head that confused him, because you're young and you think, oh my God, what do I need to do here?
From that, over the next few months, I developed a form of PTSD. And a lot of times people think PTSD is just like people in the army or the emergency services get PTSD from the horrible things they see, but it's a lot of traumatic events, and for whatever reason my brain wired that as a traumatic event. For a year and a half, maybe 20 months, every single day, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep, I was in full panic mode, for no reason.
He worries a lot, and that's a setback.
Would have been challenging for most young blokes, and we're very proud that he's managed it the way that he has.
Making videos was probably one of the only therapeutic things that I could do in the first couple of months of dealing with that, because it was the only time that my brain would switch off. I'd had enough of not doing the things I wanted to do in life. I'd just been coasting at this point, like most 21-year-olds. At the same time, I was listening to the podcast that I've been listening to for years at this point, the Joe Rogan Experience. And there was one episode with Joey Diaz, and they were just talking about how people get into stand-up. And they just were saying that you write 5 minutes of material and you go to an open mic night. And I thought, okay, well, if that's what I need to do, then let's do that. So I wrote down 5 minutes of material. I put it off forever. It took me 6 months to get the balls to go and do stand-up for the first time. I thought, fuck it, let's do it. So I went, did my first set at the Crown and Anchor at an open mic night, and I guess the rest was history.
I remember before meeting Isaac, everyone talking about him at a gig in Terrigal, and they were saying, there's this guy, he's huge. He's 6'10" and bloody 130 kilos, is a monster. And I was just going, I don't believe it. There's no way he's bigger than me. Surely he's. And then they said, no, trust me, he's Tony Butterfield's son. And I went, you're joking, the footy player. How does he go as a comic? And I went, oh, he's rude. He is rude. He does not give a fuck.
This is where it happened. This is where it started, and it's quite interesting to be here. We just walked in here before, and there's a comedy night on. The guys are packing down behind me, and it's actually quite funny to just walk in here and that's happening. But a lot's changed for me, obviously, and it's just interesting. This is still happening. This is for other people's journeys. It's still going on.
The first time I saw his set, I just remember all the confidence and loudness that everyone spoke about, and he was really just being himself. Good to see that he wasn't pandering and wasn't doing what everyone else wanted him to do.
I'm up the back of the room. I was scoping for talent at the time because I was running my own comedy nights around the valley, and you couldn't miss him at 6'8". Swore for Australia and looked like he'd robbed the pie shop and ate the evidence.
Yeah, mate! Fucking you cunts need subtitles up the back. What's going on? Is this all right?
Open mic comedy is a hard slog. I did a comedy night once near my own home, and I went there, and on the same night, there was an Anthony Mundine fight on, and this big boxing fight. There's about 500 people in the pub, and we turned the fucking boxing fight down to start the comedy night, and I was like, oh no, this is going to end terribly. And it did. So this is the Oriental Hotel, and the Oriental was sort of the stepping stone. If you made it at the Crown and Anchor, the open mic night, you could move forward to the Sydney venues, the bigger venues, and that was seen as the pinnacle. If you could get there, then you could move forward and take on the world. The stage was set over there. It was this little stage, and they had a light on, that type of stuff. This was full of just pissed people, blind, drunk, carrying on. People got glassed in the bathrooms. There was one guy that got bashed in there, and comics from Sydney wouldn't come down because they were just like, no, fuck this. This is way too much for me. The Ori was tough, but the Ori was necessary, and I'm really glad that it was here, and I'm really glad that I did it.
We did a ton of gigs back in the day, and with another bloke called Matt Reddy, and we used to jump in the car and down we go to Sydney, and 4-hour round trip for a 5 or 10 minute spot, and it was absolutely glamorous, mate. Sometimes we'd kill, sometimes we'd die, but it's the way it was. It was fun, a lot of fun. I miss it, actually.
I think that having faced those tough crowds early on is definitely does prepare him for all the online hate, all the one-offs in the crowd that really want to give him a crack.
Doing pub gigs and dealing with a lot of drunk idiots, it really puts you in good stead to deal with the absolute fuckwits that you run into online. Because there's nothing that people can say to me online that hasn't been said to me in at least 2 languages before. When I first came on stage, it was going to be my thing that I'd wear thongs. But
that's right, you used to wear thongs up on stage, and I was like, who the fuck is this motherfucker that's so cocky to wear thongs up on stage just do an open mic?
Do you know why I stopped?
Why?
Because the fucking stage was so sticky that my thongs kept breaking.
Is that why you wear? Can you zoom down and have a look what he's currently wearing at the moment?
Yeah.
So now upgraded to slides.
These are made by small Ethiopian children. They're not breaking.
All right, next guest is a brilliant comic from Newcastle. He's one of my favourites here. Isaac Butterfield. Put your hands together, come on. Yew. Yes, thank you, Andrew. Sunday on a bookshop. This doesn't happen enough, does it?
I was able to book some shows for Josh Wade and Frenchie over the years. We did some O-Week shows, some regional stuff. It was good to be able to have someone like Isaac who was willing to take time off work and come and help out. He genuinely wanted to come along for the laugh and wanted to learn, and they were the best 2 guys really to help him kind of learn the craft. He was able to 7-hour trips from bloody Orange to Armidale. He was able to just pick their brains the whole time, and while they picked on me on the drive, I guess.
We've had several conversations on those road trips down to Sydney and back and up the valley, and we'd all bounce ideas off each other, jokes, material, that type of thing, and I'd give Isaac a few suggestions and he'd ignore them at all. He'd say, no, I know what I'm doing. He said, the future's on the internet, that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it work. And he did. I could go around doing the open mic scene forever in a day, and it wasn't going to take me anywhere. What I need to do is do what these people who I'm working with, like Josh Wade and Frenchie, I was opening for these guys around the country, and they were making videos. I thought, why wouldn't I? So I decided that I'm going to start making videos.
I love Winnie Blues, Tinzer Blues, and the New South Wales Blues. My name's Isaac Butterfield, and here's what I'll change when I'm the coach next year. North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un has come a long way since Gangnam Style. 10 reasons not to visit Australia. Now, I've had a lot to say about vegans in the past. I think in my last video I called them fuckwits 30 or 40 times. Here's a fun fact for you. Did you know that 100% of cyclists who are nearly hit by cars on our roads absolutely fucking deserve it?
I can't believe you got banned from Facebook. Are they being too sensitive, or did you actually go too far?
I'll never apologise for a joke. What matters here is intent. I don't think any topic is off limit. I think particularly with stand-up, you should be able to joke about anything.
Probably the only issue for me and his mother is more the style of comedy.
He doesn't swear normally, and to hear him say that, I've been to one of his shows, and I really liked it. He was good, he was great on stage, but I just didn't like all the swearing.
Mum reads all the comments too. I'm like, don't read the fucking comments. Like, the comment sections on social media is just the most ridiculous place in the entire world.
I don't think Isaac's the best YouTuber in Australia. No, I don't watch any of Isaac's videos. He swears too much.
Isaac Butterfield is back. Last time we spoke, no one knew who the fuck you were.
No one cared, and now several people care.
You've put on 250,000 YouTube subscribers, and you've sold out, what, 10
shows?
10 shows, and there's a bunch that are looking like they're about to sell out as well.
Me and him would be away on tour, and we'd be getting lunch or something, and these people would be harassing Josh and Frenchie, and we'd be going, oh, what a fucking nightmare. Maybe a year later, it was probably only 3 or 4 months into when Isaac really boomed, and I remember people coming up to him and going, you're Isaac Butterfield, and I remember him afterwards saying, it's happened a couple of times now. And I was like, remember when we were there and we were getting lunch and no one knew who you were? And he'd say, yeah, and I'd say, how does that feel? And he'd say, yeah, it feels pretty good, I like it, it's good.
I went from 1,000 subscribers I got in about a month to 10,000 and then 20,000 and then 100,000. I was like, holy shit. And then within a year, I'm at nearly 800,000. When we first started talking about doing a tour, I was doing 10 shows. And I would have loved to have sold 1 or 2 of them out. We ended up doing over 50 and we sold them all out. That's fucking batshit is what that is.
There's so many distractions online, so many things to look at, so many things to be amazed by. I don't know how you get the eyeballs.
Isaac's generally a lot of the time he's fun on tour, but I can confirm his dick stinks.
See, this is my studio. This is where the millions of Buttsman people across the country get their vision from, get their weekly entertainment skills from. Underneath here is probably the most important part of this entire thing. Definitely. This is my first joke book. This is the first thing that I wrote on it. On the first page, it says first draft. My first set list is actually in here. Giant joke, don't know what that one is. And the porn commentator, which is in the special as well. So something about airline food and comic advice. Since I started making YouTube videos, I've always been on. You've always got to be looking for stuff and looking for content. And a lot of people who make YouTube videos and they get some success, they stop. And that's the worst thing you can do. You need to double down, you need to work as hard as you can. And that's what I do here.
I think he goes a bit hard on the push bikers. But mate, some people get it.
He goes where other people won't, sort of thing. We live in this politically correct world where, you know, oh, you can't say that, you can't do this, you can't do fat, black, bald sort of thing. So, yeah, he'll cross that line sort of thing. I think he does it with respect, and at the end of the day, it's only a joke, you know.
I had no sex life when I was a teenager. My sex life when I was a teenager was like Bill Cosby's sex life before he discovered Rooflin. Non-existent.
The lady I was talking about before who broke up with me when I was just out of school, she's now a lesbian. Which is great for her. It confused me, though, mainly because she's attractive. Didn't think they existed.
One of the strangest things that I've noticed about doing stand-up over the years is the drive home post-show is perhaps the most lonely a human can be. You go from being the center of attention, you go from being the man, the woman, you go from having everyone's laughter at your beck and call, and you're on fire, everything's going well, and a big round of applause, and people are getting photos, and then all of a sudden everyone leaves the room and that's it. Nothing. It's something that every comic has to deal with and every comic has to learn how to live with. My life is very strange. I just spend most of my time in my office, which is at my home. Which means for the vast majority of the week, I'm by myself. When I'm at home, all my mates are at work, and when all my mates are out having a great time, a couple of beers with the boys, I'm working. I decided pretty early on in the piece that I needed some structure in my life and I needed to have some responsibilities. I train MMA, and I've been very interested in MMA upon learning more about it through the Joe Rogan podcast. I started coming here every day because it's structure for me. It's something that I can wake up every morning and know I have to do. With my job, there is no time limits. There's no, you have to be here at this time, you have to get up at this time. In the mornings when I come here, I know I've got one thing won for the day. I've beaten my mind and I've beaten my body every single morning, and that's more beneficial than anything else that I do in my life. This is something that's very, very important to me.
He's definitely got a talent and a skill for it. I think the better and better that he becomes at what he's doing in here, it'll just cross over into his craft, and vice versa.
That's it. That's the last training session before we shoot the special. It's very exciting to do this, but it's important also to make sure from a physical standpoint and from a mental standpoint that you're ready for anything, because these vegans, they come out of the woodworks. I've had too many death threats to not be ready. Can't wait for the special. I'm gonna get a haircut to look all sharp, go and sort my suit out. This has to work. There's no other option. There's no plan B. I'm only a few hours now from filming what is basically the pinnacle of my life. Everything that I've worked towards at this point is about to happen. The filming of my first special. There's a part of me that wants to savor it, there's a part of me that wants to get it over with, and there's a bigger part of me that wants to get it right. There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of freaking the fuck out, but what it really is an opportunity for me to look back. And this place right here, Fort Scratchley, which has looked over Newcastle and protected it through the First World War, the Second World War, and before both of those, reminds me the most of home. And that's why I came here, because I wanted to remind myself of where I came from before I go out in front of Australia and the world.
Walk in a room and people just lose it. Knocked to my head and my chain, I'ma lose it. Came a long way from that local loser. But touch my family, I'ma fucking lose it. Fucking losers. Drugs on the rider, drugs on the set list. I'm as often as it ever gets, bitch. Living life like I got a death wish. Going in, nah, indefinite. See your boy, him right there. Tell me where he fucking live.
We are here at the Concourse in Chatswood for my first comedy special. It's very bloody exciting, let me tell you that. I'll use some polite words because there is a receptionist here until we get through there, and then I'll be the vulgar human bearded man. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna hit my head somewhere. Walk through here and holy shit, there's another door. All right, hang on. Forgot there was another door. We open that and we come through and here we are. But this is it. This is what we're about to do. I'm very excited. What else can I say? This is fucking awesome. This whole thing's just crazy.
Dude, it's fucking, it's mental. And it's like getting bigger and bigger.
It is.
Like, I see you're wanting 1 million by your birthday.
Yeah, 1 million subscribers by the 14th of July, that's the goal.
Oh yeah, that's really good. Exciting. Yeah. That's sick.
What about the microphone down from the...
Yeah, I said to Josh, was that just for one joke?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Such a fucking effort for one joke. What's like a mood? Like what's it? Maybe a blue is a mood.
Blue is technically mood, but I reckon take away, for the epilepsy, take away the walls completely, because that'll make it a lot darker.
Hello. Oh, that sounds good. I never hold back. I don't censor myself. I don't say things because I think they are clickbaity. I say things because I believe them. I don't not say things because I worry about sponsors. I say things because I believe them. It's amazing to see people when they walk into a show, like they might be worrying about how it's happening at work, or their kids are playing up, or little Betty Sue's bloody broken a leg and how are we going to pay for it? But once you go to the show, once you're in the show, once I have people enjoying themselves and laughing, that all goes out the window, and all of a sudden they're smiling, they're happy, and it's this butterfly effect. It moves on to other places in their lives, you know. They go home and they greet the babysitter with a big smile on their face, maybe give them an extra $50, and then that changes her day, and it goes on and on and on. Laughter has that power. This is a massive night for me, but it's not one of those things where I look at it and go, okay, we need to be spot on and we need to be perfect and every line has to be delivered in a certain way, because that's not me. That's not how I do stand-up. Every show is different, otherwise I get bored. I get nervous before shows, but the main thing I get anxious and nervous about is waiting to go on stage is a lot like waiting to play football or have a boxing match or whatever, you know. The stakes are high, but I'm happy and I'm excited, and this is all that I wanted to do. Right through that door in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes time, it's game time. It's good that we were all there at the start and being able to be on the journey. So it's a big journey, and it's really enjoyable from my point of view to watch. What do you reckon? It's good to see one of us succeeded? Yeah, that's it, yeah. I never will, so it's... No. Never was going to, really.
Nothing amazes me anymore with Isaac.
One of the things that good stand-ups can do is connect with every single person in that room, regardless of their upbringing, regardless of what they have at home, what problems they're dealing with, and connect with them and make them laugh.
You know, I started off and I made videos for 8 months and no one gave a shit, you know, and now it's moved to this point.
It was just amazing watching from literally open mics to coming on tour to open and then to doing 2 500-seaters in a big theatre. Everyone coming to see him.
He's got the world ahead of him, and we're just going to cheer him on from home here. And
now you're going to make me cry.
I'm just trying to get in the will.
My family are the reason that I was able to do this, because without them, without their support, without the people close to me, from mum and dad and my grandparents, my partner, my dog, everyone, you know, supported me to the point where I was able to do this, and it was achievable.
G'day, you good motherfuckers. How are ya?
all right, we good? We out?
We're good, yeah.
And it's a cat.
That's it, thanks, mate.
Who's going to watch this shit anyway? Oh my God.
Stumble in the Uber, I said take me where the cougars be. The hands all on my body, ain't nobody handle me.